Hello, it's ElectraSnow, and I'm going to be showing you how to make these false teeth using polymorph plastic. Now, polymorph plastic is this thermoreactive plastic beads, and as you can see, they look like tiny little pearls. Now, these little tiny pieces of plastic react with heat, so when you place them into hot water, they completely melt, and they can be molded into any shape that you want, and you can repeat this process multiple times, making absolutely anything with this stuff. To start the process off and to get the plastic to melt, I take some hot water that has just boiled and I place that into a glass. Now it depends on what you're making out of the polymorph, but a little bit of this does go a long way, so depending on what it is that you're making, you'd have to make a judgment to how much it is that you want to use. But anything that is left over from this that we don't use after melting it can be left to harden up again and be reused at any point. Once the white plastic beads hit the water, you can see that they begin to start turning clear and begin melting. Now this clip of the beads in the water isn't sped up at all. You can see that once they hit the water, they begin to melt pretty much instantly. Now when you're doing this, you want to make sure that the water is hot enough to give you your full working time with the plastic beads. You'll know when they're fully melted because they turn clear like these ones are here. Once they've got to this point, they're ready to remove from the water, and to get them out, I use the back end of a spoon or anything that you can use to push into the plastic to remove it from the boiling water without getting on your skin. You can see that once it has melted, they all kind of stick together and all come out in one piece. And this is a point where you have your working time. At the moment you can see it's completely clear and it basically looks like liquid glass, but as it begins to cool down it will slowly become less and less malleable, and if you haven't added your colour to it at this point, it will begin to turn back white. Now that I've shown you how polymorph plastic works, I'm going to be showing you how those small beads can be transformed into these teeth that fit your own and go over your ones, making you have a false set of monster teeth. Now if you have the colorant beads for polymorph plastic, you can use those to add colour, but in this case I'm using food colouring. You can also use that as well. You're going to need 2 bowls, some towels, polymorph plastic, some instant bond super glue. In this case I'm using nail glue that once dry isn't toxic, and I have nail sculpt gel there. That is completely optional, but I like to use it when I'm making these teeth. I fill up one of the bowls with boiling water and then I add my polymorph plastic and allow it to melt. And again, the judgment on how much it is that you want to use is up to you. I decided to use a little bit more to make these teeth thicker so that the monsters I'm transforming into have kind of a thicker gum line to give me kind of a gurning expression on my face. But even with a thin layer of it molded around your teeth, once it's had full time to cool and harden, it will be more than hard enough to deal with anything it is you want to do with it. This piece of plastic that I'm working with here is going to be the piece that we mould onto our teeth, so we want to make this to be a nice gum colour. To add the colorant to the polymorph, I'm using red food colouring, and this is the thing to remember with this: even though it is clear at the moment, it will turn back white, so if you add a little bit of red to white, it will turn pink and become a nice gum kind of colour. I then place it back into boiling water again so it becomes fully malleable. Then this is a point where you want to push that plastic onto the teeth you want an impression of. In this case, it was my upper teeth. Now you can see there's a part on this plate that goes up into my palate on the roof of my mouth, and you can leave that on there, but for comfort reasons I decided to take it off, and to remove that I just used some scissors to cut the excess of it away, and then I very carefully went around that arc with a serrated knife to get a nice curved edge, and then with a nail file I used that to just take down any sharp edges and to make it nice and smooth so it wouldn't affect my gums or my palate when I replace this back in my mouth. And now you can see that part's done. It's made a pretty perfect impression of my teeth. There's a slight gap there, but we're going to be filling that now while we're adding the little fangs to it. To make the fangs, I took some more polymorph plastic and heated that up in hot water, and in this case I didn't add any colour to it, but deciding on what monster it is you're making, you could do that at this point. I formed that plastic into long kind of fang-like pointy teeth, and I made sure that I made the top area of it that I'll be placing onto that gum plate kind of flat, because that is the area that we're going to be adding glue to so that we can stick it to that plate of plastic. While the tooth is still malleable, I take that flat part and push it onto the gum plate so I can get a custom fit. I then take this long skewer and I use that to push the back of the tooth onto the gum plate to make it look like it's actually growing out of it. And this also gives that tooth a little ledge to sit there when we glue it in place. Depending on what it is I'm creating, I like to make the front 2 teeth first and get these relatively even, and then I like to apply those to the gum plate so that they're in place and I can get the spacings of the other teeth correct. And to apply them, I just apply a very small amount of instant bond super glue to the back of the teeth, and then I push it onto the gum plate. Now this stuff isn't toxic when it's dried down, but you do not want to put it in your mouth while it's still wet. Super glue was, and in some instances still is, used to stick wounds back together, and although not all glues are made the same, I'm pretty sure that nail glue I use on my nails quite regularly is relatively safe and pretty much non-toxic once dry, to be used on these teeth to rarely apply now and again for transformations. To speed up the process of making the remaining teeth for this plate, I just take a little sausage of the polymorph plastic and then I use a pair of scissors to cut into it, cutting it in half to get a nice sharp point. Now once polymorph plastic hardens again, it will be relatively sharp depending on what it is you make with it, so you have to be careful with this and make sure that once you apply these teeth, they're not going to be pushing into your bottom lip when you apply this into your mouth. Once I have all those teeth exactly where I want them and they're stuck down in place, you can leave that like that, but I like to make a kind of like plate that goes over the top of it to make it look like these teeth are actually growing out of the polymorph plastic. To do this finishing seam line, I just took the remaining pieces of polymorph plastic that I'd cut off from the palette area at the back of this plate, and I formed that into a sausage, roll that across the top of these teeth, and push it into place, making sure to get round every single little tiny groove that's in these teeth that I've applied to that original plate. And I also go in with that long skewer and I apply kind of lines to where the top of the teeth would be sitting underneath the gum. You can see that I do this along every single tooth, and it gives a nice texture around the teeth at the gum line. You'll also notice that there is a few little flecks of red food colouring left there, and I like to leave these in to give the effect of blood left in the gums. I also make sure to take notice that when I am forming this final seam line across the plate, that I'm not pushing this into the back of the teeth where my actual real teeth would be sitting, because if it goes over that line, it will not fit your teeth correctly and it won't fit back into your mouth. I also like to push in each tooth to make it blend into the gum line even further. I then use that skewer to just slowly pry this off, making sure not to pull any teeth with it, because this won't be fully secure without a little bit of glue. And in this instance, you can go in with a little bit more of Instant Bond nail glue, but to finish this seam line off so it has a little bit more durability, I like to use UV reactive nail sculpt gel. Now this is basically exactly the same stuff that they use to apply each one of the squares of a brace to your teeth. I just apply that along that gum line, put this into my UV cure lamp that I use for making my nails, and once that is fully dry, it gets a nice hard layer that is fully bonded and they're really securely applied to the teeth. So yeah guys, if you've ever seen monster teeth pop up in my transformations, that's basically how I create them. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe, and until next time, bye bye.